Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, Jazakallah khair and welcome to our year in review event for 2020. We were actually really skeptical and a bit unsure about whether we wanted to run an event like this, particularly because of the year that everyone had, including myself. But alhamdulillah, after a few discussions with our community and with the core team, we realized it was actually quite important to highlight the impact and the difference that our community has made this year despite the difficulties. Now, before passing it on to the more interesting speakers, I wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of speak a little bit about Deen developers so you guys understand where we came from, how we evolved, and where we're at right now. And in order to do that, I need to transport you guys back to June of 2019. And alhamdulillah, June of 2019 was amazing. First of all, no pandemic. Liverpool had just won the Champions League. I had just come back from Umrah. And we at Deen Developers, alhamdulillah, we ran our first ever hackathon. And that hackathon was something of beauty, despite this very dull looking picture on your screen. And in order to make this hackathon a reality, we really had to reach out to a few different people in order to call in some last minute favors, such as reaching out to one of my dad's friends who owns a restaurant to cover catering, as well as reaching out to Muslim Youth Network to kind of hook this venue space up for us at UCL. But alhamdulillah, when everything came together, it was really quite amazing to see. And the things that were achieved were absolutely amazing. Relationships were built, projects were developed, and I myself really enjoyed myself in terms of really getting to know people on an individual level. And then, alhamdulillah, despite the successes and really enjoying this event, for the rest of 2019, we felt a little bit dormant, we as Deen developers. And that was partly because life obviously gets a little bit busy, but also because we kind of struggled to answer the question who we are. In terms of what are we? Are we a community of developers that come together and just mingle and get to know one another? Are we an organization that runs hackathons? What were we? And we didn't really realize the potential that our community had. Then, alhamdulillah, in 2020, we teamed up with our, oh, what does that say? Show anyway. What? Picture's not showing up. Okay, I'm going to have a picture here of our event at, from our event in January with Muslimic Makers, where we teamed up with Muslimic Makers to run an event at Google for Startups, as well as there's meant to be a picture here about our hackathon that we ran at Makers Academy, but fortunately it's not loading right now. And then even after running these events, we really, we still struggle to answer that question, who we are. Again, what was the purpose behind our hackathons? Were they simply to bring people together, or was there a greater purpose behind this? Then, alhamdulillah, in Ramadan of this year, we ran a hackathon around the Ramadan in lockdown, virtually actually. As you can see, there's no picture in the background here. And from this hackathon, we really wanted to actively solve problems that the Muslim community was facing during Ramadan in lockdown, whether that came to iftar meals or prayers and stuff like this. And we really, and from this hackathon, alhamdulillah, we really began to understand the potential that our community has and what we can achieve when we come together, the difference that we can make and the impact that we can have. And after this hackathon, not only were MVPs built, but products were actually launched into the community to have a significant impact on the world. And this really helped us answer that question around who are we? And who we are is a community of techies and creatives crowdsourcing talent to build solutions to societal problems. And this is obviously a little bit wordy, but what does this actually mean? And what do we actually do? Well, in essence, we're still a community at heart. We still launched community initiatives this year in 2020. We launched Made with Kahwa, which was a monthly knowledge sharing session, which is led by our community for the community, which Azizur will be speaking about a little bit later. I'm not sure why the pictures aren't loading, but just imagine there's a picture in the background here. But yeah, we launched a weekly coding session called Code Jam, where people can basically come together, drop in, drop out, and answer and get their questions answered around tech, and really get to know other people within the community. Likewise here, there's meant to be another picture, which again, probably should have tested this earlier, but it's not loading. And yeah, we also, trying to remember what was the slide actually. Let me see if I can get out and show it like this, right? Okay, Yeah, so we also launched our monthly newsletter, where Alhamdulillah is succeeding quite well. As well as this, we continue to run events for the community, such as Inspirational People in Tech, Startup Founders, where we got members from within our community, startup founders, to really talk about different topics that and things that they had learned whilst running their startups. And Alhamdulillah, also in Ramadan, we raised over £10,000 for a water irrigation project in Malawi with One Nation. But as well as doing all of this, as well as creating a safe space for Muslims to come together, mingle, and really get to know one another, we wanted to expand our goals and objectives. We didn't just want to be another Muslim meetup group where people came together and not much was done. Instead, we actively wanted to solve community problems. We wanted to be at the forefront of solving issues that the Muslim community and wider society at large were facing using tech. And as well as this, we wanted to empower and unlock the potential within our community. Our last hackathon that we done in the Ramadan in lockdown, we really began to realize that what can happen when those people within our community come together and use the skills that they've gained at work, those developer skills, those design skills, those product skills, and so forth. What they can achieve when they come together. And alhamdulillah, we've started running hackathons with purpose, and we've started bringing our community together to really build impactful projects. The first one being Foodpot, which is a digital food bank where those in need can order free meals from local food centers and from mosques, which Haseem and Yasmin will be speaking about a little bit later. As well as Salah Space, which was a project that we built in only 2 weeks to help solve the problem around how do Muslims book prayer spaces at the local mosques and how do they social distance also. As well as this, we also, from our last hackathon in Ramadan in lockdown, we developed a product called Share Iftar. And I'm not going to go on any further and take up any more time, just in case any more pictures don't load up on my screen. And with this, inshallah, I want to pass it on to Dilwoar, who is a senior engineer at Gov UK, as well as tech lead at on Share Iftar. So Dilwoar, if you can share your screen, inshallah, and take over.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hope you can see my screen. So my name is Dilwoar Hussain, and I was the tech lead on the Share Iftar project. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to scale a hackathon project. So with Share Iftar, we had a simple mission. We wanted to make food accessible to everyone. With mosques closed and other charities closed because of COVID reasons, we knew that people were not being fed, people fasting all day and not being able to break their fast. So we wanted to make it easy for people to access food. So we spent a weekend, we built a small app where you can go on the app, register, choose where you want to pick up food, choose the amount of meals that you want, just like Uber Eats, but you don't actually have to pay for anything. After the weekend, we were like, so what do we do with this? Normally in hackathons, what you do is you build something, you tested out an idea, it worked, or it didn't work, and you just drop it. You go back to work on Monday, and that's the end of it. That project never gets built. It was a nice idea that you presented, but what we wanted to do is we wanted to take it a bit further. We realized that there was actually a need. We wanted to make sure that these people were fed regardless of what situation they're in. We had 3 goals to start off with. We decided that these were important. So the first one was if we were going to get this thing built and get this thing out there, we needed to make sure that we didn't just have one food center, we had multiple food centers across the country. Then we also wanted to make sure that people knew about the app. If people didn't know about the app, they won't be able to get the food. Then we also needed to make sure that it was always working. So if we had loads of traffic, that it didn't suddenly crash or it goes down and people didn't come back because they thought, oh, this thing just crashes. So our first goal, to achieve our first goal, we kept it simple. We got on the phone, we shared on social media, spoke to a few sheikhs, and we ended up with about 13 locations across London. We then wanted to make sure that people knew about our app. So we got social media influencers like Rahim Jung and a few comedians to actually promote our service. We got about 175,000 views on our tweets that we did. I didn't even check Instagram, but we had thousands of people sharing, commenting, telling us this is a good idea. And this caught attention of big giants like Wrap It Up, who are a international food chain, who wanted to supply some meals for us. So they came on board, they supplied meals to us, and we put out flyers and other literatures so people knew what to do. So we kept it simple. We wanted to make sure that people knew exactly how to do it and it wasn't too complicated. To make sure everything was working, we had to add in loads of different technologies. We couldn't keep it like a basic HTML website where it just displays some static content. We needed to make sure that it's scalable, is thing. So we moved from our Heroku test instance to AWS. And in AWS, we added load balancers. We put our database on a managed database server called RDS. We put all of our assets on S3, and we made sure that if there's loads of traffic, that traffic could be handled. We even implemented some load testing scripts to make sure that we could handle some traffic when it comes in. We split up the backend and the front end. So we put all of the backend stuff onto AWS and we put all of the front end stuff into Netlify. So Netlify makes it very easy for us to deploy code all over the world and give much higher scalability than we could do with AWS. So when users went on our site, they got an instant response wherever they are in the world. We also used other managed services like MessageBird, which sent text messages to collection centers where it let them know how many food packages were being collected that day and what times. We tried to use as many managed services as possible because we had a very small team and we were going from a 2-day hackathon to a massive production ready project. We didn't want to build everything ourselves, so we used managed services as possible, and that's something that I would recommend. Use managed services wherever you can. It's a bit more expensive, but if you don't have to hire someone to manage the whole infrastructure, then that saves you that money. We also wanted to make sure that people were getting the right level of support. So we got a support system from Freshdesk and a web chat facility. With Freshdesk, any emails that were coming through, any messages or anything like that, you would instantly raise a ticket. So our support team knew exactly which queries to deal with and which message was about which query. They could also leave private notes. So if there's something that they want to leave for another team member to deal with afterwards, they can leave those notes, and it made managing a remote team much easier. Our web chat was a easy way for us to quickly manage expectations. So a lot of times what happened was people arrived at a venue, they didn't know where the location was, or they had issues with the direction. They could quickly go to our website, jump on the web chat and quickly chat to us, and we'd get a notification on our phone and we could respond to them straight away. So another thing we wanted to do is we wanted to be transparent. We didn't want, we're not a business. We don't need to hide anything that we're doing. We wanted to be transparent so people knew exactly what was going on, and people could see a. We also wanted to encourage people to see, okay, this is something we started at 0 about a week or 2 ago. Now we're at 650 or 1,000, and we wanted to show people how easy it is to get to that level, and that growth is a steady thing, and it's not something that happens instantly. So we built a dashboard where you could go see all of our data. You can see how many orders we made the day before, that on the same day, and how many orders we did in total. You could also see a trend so in what happens. So you could see during the week you are really busy, then in the weekend it drops down. So what we noticed is that on a Sunday we'd have very little orders, but during the week we'd have loads. So it just shows that during the week there's a lot of people that are not getting food, but on a weekend they always manage to find something. And what we also did was we also published on a regular basis a stats or a poster about how many meals we've done. And what that did was it kept our brand going. It kept people sharing, and those people who didn't hear about us, they heard about us by seeing one of these posters. One of the main key things that changed from a weekend hackathon to an actual fully production ready project was when we grew our team. Initially, we had 2 backend devs, two front-end devs, and a designer, and it was very tech heavy. We were thinking about is how to build amazing tech, and we didn't really think about the logistics, managing the whole project and engagement that much. So we got a project manager on board, and we got who oversaw the whole project, made sure that we were meeting deadlines, that we were meeting expectations, and that everything was running smoothly. Then we knew that we also will have logistics issue, deliveries being late, people might turn up and things don't go right. All those things we needed someone on logistics, and our logistics person made sure that every single order was fulfilled. Then we also had an engagement person. We realized that when we go fully production, we're all going to be busy trying to keep up with fixes, new features, designing new products, and the day-to-day running would be really hectic. So we got someone in engagement who in the background was making sure that there were new food centers getting on board, and new people knew that we were still there. Here are some few lessons that we learned from all of this. We learned that you should always have the right intention. If we started off this as a business, or if we started off this as something else, we'd probably still be planning and worrying about every single penny of profit. Here our intention was to make sure everyone was fed, and that got us together, and we could run the whole team behind that vision. We stayed local. We decided that if we go national, we're gonna struggle because there's gonna be too many things going wrong, and we won't be able to manage our standards, like our COVID social distancing standards that we put on every single food center, making sure that deliveries were made properly, making sure that no one was being We also didn't build all of the features. So don't build all of the features in every single feature that you need. So one of the features that we were going to build initially was a admin screen for the food centers. Initially, we thought, okay, the food centers need to be able to accept and reject things. So we realized that that's going to be a much bigger task, and we won't be able to go live because Ramadan was around the corner and we couldn't finish everything. So what we did is we just sent them a text message and an email with a list of people that are coming, and that worked fine. We asked them how many they can do per day so they don't get more than their capacity, and that basically solved our problem. They didn't need a backend system where they would have to get a computer or something else to sort that problem out. It's also important to appropriately scale the platform. One of the issues is that overscaling takes up too much time. So we try to keep it as simple as possible. We went a little bit overboard, but our team had already had the skills to do that very quickly. So we didn't spend too much time on doing that. And having the right team is very important. When you're doing a project that doesn't make any money, doesn't have any income coming in or anything like that, you need to have the right team to deliver the product. Everyone needs to be behind the same vision. Everyone needs to have the right skill sets. A lot of times in hackathons, you get put into teams and your skill sets are not aligned. You have juniors and seniors, and sometimes like it doesn't always balance out. But Alhamdulillah, in our project, we happened to get the right team and we were able to deliver the project very easily. And this is one of the hadiths that kept us all going through the whole thing. And this hadith, Prophet ﷺ, he said, the best of you are those who feed others. And this is something that we reiterated through our team meetings, and it kept the motivation and everything going throughout the whole project. And that's it. That's the end of my project. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me on Twitter at Dilwoar Hussein. Assalamualaikum.
Honestly, I love hearing these stories. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but alhamdulillah, these stories are absolutely amazing. To hear that the team came together at one of the Deen developers hackathons, and then over just a weekend they built something that 1,390 people were fed because of. Alhamdulillah, it's an amazing project, and it's really good. Alhamdulillah, so well done to the team. Well done to everyone that was involved. Inshallah, next we have Yasmin, who will be speaking about Foodpot, one of the ongoing projects that we're currently building right now. Alhamdulillah. So if Yasmin, if you want to share your screen.
Yeah, give me a second. Oh. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah, salams everyone. I'm Yasmin, and I've been doing some product work on Foodpot. By day, I'm a product manager for a fintech company in Manchester called Open Money. This is our awesome team. So a huge shout out to everyone involved in this, because everyone's been amazing. And it's actually amazing how people have come, like a highly skilled team have come together quite voluntarily. And this is quite an ambitious type project. So yeah, huge shout out to you all. So initially, Ibrahim posted in Slack and online, and I thought it was quite a reactive community response to what's been going on this year, but also with, like, if I'm sure most of you have seen what Marcus Rashford has done around school meals. So for me, it was something that I resonated with and I wanted to contribute. I think I speak for the whole team when I say that we're all here to make an impact and to give back. And sometimes in this line of work, you don't really get to be like front line in these sort of things. So a project like this really gives you that opportunity to utilize your skills in a great way. And in terms of some of the problems, so actually not long ago, I spoke to quite a few people who I know who've been delivering food as like food banks and youth groups and mosques and stuff. And, you know, just trying to understand the problem a bit more. And I mean, it is quite glaringly obvious, but like just to understand some of the challenges the food banks face when they're going out and giving food to people. And more people are on this poverty line, particularly from this year. Like more and more people are using food banks. Lots of people from the BAME community are being affected in particular. And it's a case of like, how do we go about building something that will address that through a product? And I mean, you've all seen Sheriff Daz, that provided like some good validation and a good base to build this product. And, you know, I got posed with quite a few questions, like it could be argued that actually like some people in that poverty line might not have accessibility to technology. So how do we address that? And I do think though, like there are different poverty groups, and I think though we'll address some of them, I think some of them will come from like an operational process where we'll think about how do we bridge that gap manually? Like, you know, we maintain some manual processes for the food bank to manage in terms of their dashboard. So I guess that's just something that'll come from more research and testing. But also like things like, you know, how do we, like some food banks came back and said to me that actually there's like a lack of honesty. We don't really know like if we're giving to people and they're being completely honest with us. So though that issue will still stay, I think in time as we kind of onboard more people, we'll probably address that through some validation and other solutions that will present itself, hopefully. But yeah, there are two key statements. So like I would say that we need to provide food for people within a locality across the UK. So knowing that like there are food banks in your area that will give you that your next meal essentially. And also with food banks, we need to ensure that there's not any waste, because they need to know exactly who they're giving the food to. So we need to build something around that whole idea that they can manage that process more efficiently. So what we did, so from a product perspective, me and Ibrahim actually mapped out some initial higher level flows, and then Shabana, who's been amazing, huge shout out to Shabana, by the way, who came on board and took some of this work and then sort of created some more detailed flow maps in Figma. So what you see here is kind of the way the food bank will get onboarded, how the user will get onboarded, and how the user will order a meal. And what this process does is really sort of flesh out those features and what we need to build in this particular project. And you know, a lot of people don't go through this process, but actually it's quite important because it really helps you to figure out like, okay, well, do we need a full-on booking system? Like, could we just run with the fact that actually let's just set some like set times, and then we could develop that as an additional feature? Or things like dietary requirements, like how detailed do we need it to be? And I think the issue you have sometimes is that like you look at like Deliveroo and Uber Eats and you think, oh, well, actually, like, you know, they're doing this and they're more luxury based, like they're more focused around like enticing the customer and that kind of stuff. So this is more around this, there's a sensitivity around this product, and we need to focus on the fact that we're providing something that's literally like at the basic level. We're not really like trying to entice them. It's like literally your next meal. So that's something that was quite a focal point. So we did this process first, and then Shabana went off and took that and then created some hi-fis around this. So this is some really good UX UI work, by the way. Like we initially was sort of, we didn't have this initially, so she's come in for the last couple of weeks and done some of this work for us. So here we've got things like, you know, validation, and this is what the product's going to look like. These aren't all the full screens. I've just taken a few of the key ones. And what this does is then just puts things into like how the product's going to look, right? So things like, you know, do we need social logins? Like, is that a nice to have? Or things around like, we just had these recent discussions around like logos and like actually if somebody puts the wrong one in. So we get all these edge cases that come from this sort of stuff. And even things like, you know, are we providing too many options for the food bank? And I think some of the things that will come from this is we either change the way the food banks work, or the food bank gets influenced around how we want them to work. So, you know, that'll come in time as we do some more research and testing around this. And this is some of the hi-fis around the user on board. So this is location driven. This is literally quite basic, to be honest. And again, like going into that whole thing around sensitivity, like we said that there'd be the image behind the logo, like we initially put like food, what they call it, curries and dishes and things, like it looked really like enticing. So we just had to be more sensitive around that stuff and said, actually, that doesn't work. But yeah, some really, really good work there. So thank you to Shabana. I'm sure she's on this call. And so yeah, so finally, like some challenges and ways of working. So we kind of did things in a weird loop. Actually, we went off and created this backlog and then realized, hold on, we need a UX resource because our UX resource and resources drop off, right? It's a voluntary project and we need to make sure that like, how do we create something that then functions as a revolving team. So Shaban actually put some design libraries together, which is great for any UX resource that comes and joins us. And then that spurred on the fact that we need a component library at some point, because when these devs drop off and we need a new bunch of devs, then they need to pick up somewhere instead of chasing people. So actually working in that whole agile mindset is quite important, because we can anticipate that, like, okay, we need somebody for we need a whole bunch of people for 8 weeks because we want to develop a booking system and this, that, the other. So we've started to do that. So some of the sort of initial issues that we had, we actually just went back and said, right, we need to start documenting things better and providing that kind of foundation for teams to come in and out on this project. And so whatever you can contribute, you can, and we can say to you, right, we need you for X amount of weeks. And feature prioritization is always an issue. Less is more. But our goal for the MVP is to get in front of that food bank and get them onboarded. So that was our kind of focus point that we came back to. And we also know that we've done stuff on assumption, some of the stuff we've sort of said what's out there, what works, what Sheriff Dar has done. But we would ideally like to do a bit more research around some stuff and make it more refined. So if you are in testing or research, or you're a UX resource and you want to get involved, then do get in touch with us. And we're looking to launch in Q1, inshallah, next year. And that's Foodpot. Oh, I need to get out of this now. There you go.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair, Yasmin. So Foodpot has definitely been a bit of a challenge for us, kind of dealing with a few different things, such as resources dropping off and people having some, obviously 2020 being such a difficult year for everyone, people having to focus their time and efforts on different projects and stuff like that. But Alhamdulillah, the fact that the team built on what Dilwoar's team had previously done in terms of working on Sheriff Dar and really making that reality and kind of reacting to the problem, right? It's important to remember that these teams that have come forward and kind of worked on is literally just from a Slack message. We pinged a Slack message onto Slack, and then of course people responded to react to the problem. And inshallah, when Foodpot does launch, I have no doubt that will be really good in that sense, inshallah. So next up, we have our very own Alamin, co-founder and community manager for Deen developers, who's going to give a little bit of a community update to kind of break up the talks in terms of products and speak a little bit more about the community in that sense.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I know that many of you have joined us now in Tier 4. Some of us have been in Tier 4 for a while now, but yeah, really nice to have you all here this evening, inshallah. So my name is Alamin, and as Ibrahim mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders at Deen Developers. The past year, I've been kind of working in the community manager role, kind of overlooking initiatives for the community. And outside of this, I am a tech consultant at an international consultancy, and my areas of interest lie within data science and AI. So I just want to kind of go a bit down memory lane. I know Ibrahim kind of touched upon our beginnings, and he walked us through kind of how we started off our first hackathon and how things went from there. So in 2019, we started very humbly. We on a Slack channel, we had around 70 members. We didn't have a newsletter then, but our presence was growing elsewhere. So on social media, people kind of started to hear a bit more around Deen Developers, and Alhamdulillah, we managed to end the year at 900 followers. We also ran that hackathon, the first one, which was obviously before the pandemic started. So it was really great to have kind of those type of events, and hopefully inshallah, as things start to kind of hopefully kind of get back to normal, we'll start to have more of those face-to-face events. We also had 2 events in 2019, and yes, and that's kind of what brings us to this year. Obviously 2020 has been a difficult year for many of us. many of us have either had family members who were affected very closely, or they may have become redundant, and which has meant that we've had to change our ways of working and also our ways of kind of communicating and organizing ourselves. Alhamdulillah, all that considered, we were able to grow, in an amazing fashion, alhamdulillah. So our members, alhamdulillah, on the Slack channel grew from 70 to 400. We also started our newsletter, which is kind of a roundup of things that are happening within the community, in events and interesting projects. So that's alhamdulillah grown to 630 now, and it's growing. Social media presence is also growing really well. So we more than doubled that. And what's really amazing, I think, it's the number of events that we had, considering the fact that we've had to change how we communicate, now everything being virtual. So we had 8 events and roughly around 400 attendees who benefited from the various initiatives that we run. We also had a hackathon at the beginning of the year where we collaborated with Islamic makers, which went really well, alhamdulillah. And also the hackathon that Ibrahim mentioned and Dilwoar talked about as well, which was kind of the first of its kind for us, which was a virtual hackathon. So this leads me on to what initiatives we've launched this year. So there are 4 that I really want to highlight here. So the first one being Made with Kahwa, which is a kind of knowledge sharing session, and Azizur is going to talk about it later, inshallah. The second one is the newsletter, like I mentioned. And then following on, we also started kind of coding hours, which is in the form of Code Jam, which are kind of informal sessions where anyone can join with questions and hopefully get those answered. And quite recently, we, as you may have kind of heard of, seen on social media and very possibly on WhatsApp, there's been a kind of an incident where a very popular Muslim application had a data breach, and we responded to that by creating kind of a collection of infographics to help users kind of protect themselves and their data online. So this leads me on to why the community is so important for Deen developers. Really, the community is at the core of what we are about and what we do. As you have heard earlier from Dilwoar and Yasmin, projects such as Foodpot and Shariftar would not really come about if there weren't people like yourselves. So really, if there is no community, there's no Deen developers. And yes, Deen developers is a safe space for like-minded people to come together and, inshallah, launch initiatives and really work together to solve today's societal problems. And that was a wrap of 2020. And alhamdulillah, we are now towards the end of 2020, although we're not ending the year like we would have hoped so. But it's still good to be hopeful about what's to come. And inshallah, 2021 will be an amazing year for all of us, I hope and I pray. And if you really want to get involved with Deen developers, maybe you have suggestions on how to improve our initiatives, or if there's anything that you would like us to get into, then please feel free to connect with me on Slack or on Twitter at Alamin ZN. Yeah, that was all from me. Really, quick update. I think what's really important, I guess, is the projects that and the initiatives that our members are, our community members are starting and taking forward. So inshallah, I'll hand it over to the next person.
Jazakallah khair, Alamin, for your update in regards to the community. Alhamdulillah, despite the difficulties of 2020, we've still managed to do quite a bit when it comes to the community, and hopefully, inshallah, in 2021 we can do more. And with your guys' help, if you guys do have any thoughts or ideas, do ping them over on Slack. Just ping the Slack sign up link on the Zoom chat, inshallah. And if you're part of the Slack community already, do let us know anything that we can do to improve the community and do things better as well, inshallah. Next up, we have Russell, who's going to be speaking about Salah Space, inshallah. So Russ, if you want to share your screen.
All right, I think you might be muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Russell. I work as a AWS serverless developer, working on backend and infrastructure. And in the Salah Space team, I was part of one of the ones working on the backend systems. And today I'll be running through how Salah Space was formed and what was the problems and how everything came to be. So back in June, July time, when the lockdown was happening, there was growing concerns of the masjids having to reopen, and they needed to follow the government guidelines of social distancing so that the worshippers can attend the mosque safely. And one big concern was Jummah, because so many people need to attend the mosque, and because of this spacing out, there would be less capacity for the mosques. So Ibrahim, he sent out a request on Slack and Twitter and all the other platforms to form a team to solve this problem. And the two main things that needed to be solved was this capacity management problems, where like smaller mosques, if you can imagine like a small mosque with many musallis coming in, they might need 2 to 3 to 4 Jummahs, and you'd have people queuing outside, and there'll be massive disruption. And also the issue of having a logbook of the attendees, so that the mosques have a record in accordance with the government guidelines. So this is the dev team, and there was so much more people involved in this and working on the logistics and the marketing side of things. And without them, I don't think Salah Space would have grown to the size that it has today. And the dev team has worked like super hard. We got everything out in within 2 weeks, because the lockdown was lifting and the mosque needed urgently this solution. Yeah. and I'd like to sort of briefly go over why did I join Salah Space. And so initially I saw the tweet by Ibrahim, and then I messaged him on Slack to join. But a few months prior to that, I'd made this dua to Allah to give me the opportunity to use my skills, the skills that I've spent so many years improving for the religion. And so often we think that, you know, we need to like proactively remind people or have to have a lot of knowledge of Islam to help others, but that isn't necessarily so. We can use our own skills within the crafts that we are in for the people and for Allah. And at the end of the day, it's what are we gonna leave behind when we leave this world? A small thing that we do can leave a massive ripple effect. And joining this project, I was never looking for a massive effect. I was thinking more along the lines of whether we can help one worshipper attend the masjid, whether we can help one mosque open safely for COVID. And I think having that intention of helping the people goes a long way. And I feel like everyone on the team had some form of that intention where they wanted to help. And that was the driving factor that bared the fruits of Salah Space. So the solution to the problems I mentioned earlier was quite simple. So all we wanted was a booking system where masjids can put their Salah time, so they can say at 1 p.m. that's Jummah 1, at 1:30 that's Jummah 2, and etc. And then they could also limit that prayer slot. So if it's a small masjid, maybe only 30 people can fit in the masjid, so they'll set the capacity to 30, and then as the worshippers book, once it reaches 30, they'll no longer be able to book and they can select the other Salah times. So on the worshipper side of things, they can either go to a URL, and when they click the URL, they can book their space, or they can do a search by postcode or location to see the masjids nearby, and then they could click their local masjid and they can sign up like that, and they'll receive a booking code, which they take to the masjid and it gets scanned through. And that is pretty much MVP. And that was our sole focus for the first 2 weeks. I was on furlough, so I had a massive amount of time to put into this project. And I remember around that time, many of the other brothers were also quite free and they could put a massive amount of time in. And we really weren't trying to make things perfect, but we were trying to build it as fast as possible because we had that deadline of the lockdown being lifted and that need being we had to fulfill as quickly as possible. After building the MVP, we then went back to add in other urgent features. Like one big feature was having support for Eid Salah, as that was also coming up within the next few months. So for the tech side of things, as you can see here in this diagram, we had on the front end, we had a React app, which we deployed using Netlify, which Netlify, as you know, allows you to easily deploy your front end apps, and then it will store all the files in some sort of bucket, and then have a CDN to sort of distribute all of the files. And on the back end, it was mainly AWS serverless infrastructure. So we used AWS Lambda for compute, which sort of replaces your servers so that you just sort of deploy your code. You deploy your code, and when you hit the API, so when you make a request to the code, it will execute that code, and you're only charged for the time that the code is run. And AWS is quite generous on its free tier as well. So there is a massive amount of AWS Lambda compute that you get for free. We also used, for our database, we used DynamoDB, which is a NoSQL database by Amazon, which is also serverless and fully managed. And you pay for your read and write requests, and the write requests are very minuscule. And the bulk of our billing was actually from DynamoDB, which at its peak was £5 in a month. So as you can see, that is a very low cost, and that projects, when using this sort of self-managed and serverless infrastructure, can be scaled to a massive level, running at very small costs. And for our authentication, we use Firebase, which is by Google, which because the front end and the back end team sort of needed to work with it, the front end team was very familiar with Firebase, and it goes back to that point that we were trying to build things as fast as possible. So if the front end team already knows Firebase, there's no reason not to use it. And that's about it. We use Google Maps for the location data to help the worshippers find the mosques, etc. As for the impact we had, we straight off the bat, we had, because it was such a big need, we had mosques signing up, and we got to around 3,000 bookings per week for Jummah. And for Eid Salah, which the most we got was, which is the most bookings we got, was around 6,000. And we have had like over 200 mosques sign up. And as you can see, like, all this impact has come from this community sort of coming together, putting their head together, working hard, having pure intentions to make an effect and an impact on the community. And that effort will not go unrewarded. And may Allah grant for every person that has sort of prayed through our app, may Allah grant every brother that has and sister that has worked on the project that reward, and even more. And this is only the impact that we can see, but off the back of this, there can be so much more impact hidden from the eye. And I think it's really important to sort of just get involved in these sort of community projects, put your ideas forward, and great things can be achieved. And I really do believe that in the next few years, like through Deen developers, there would be even bigger projects than Salah Space and Foodpot and Share Iftar and all the other great projects that this community has built. So that's it from me. I hope everyone gets more proactive in getting involved in projects. Even if you don't have much time to spare, just give whatever you can. That's it for my presentation.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, Russell. Very, I don't know, it hit me home. I'm grinning. Again, maybe because I'm biased, right, in that sense, but I think in this instance, Russell kind of hit the nail on the head, right? In order to have an impact on the world and in order to make a difference, right, it doesn't take much money and it doesn't take that much time. For the team to come together from purely on a reactionary basis, seeing that mosques are going to be affected in the UK and coming together within 2 weeks to build something that 65,000 Jummah bookings came through, SubhanAllah, is actually quite crazy. And when I pinged Russell the other day for the figure, we were both just like, SubhanAllah, how did this happen? From something that, again, only took 2 weeks to build, and from people simply just coming together from within the community and realizing that the skills that they've gained at work, how beneficial it can be for the Muslim community and for society at large as well. So, alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair for the team in that sense. And yeah, I'm obviously very biased, but of course, inshallah, you guys can see the impact that this one project and this just a little bit of that time has done for the community, inshallah. So yeah, inshallah, next I'd like to pass it on to Haseem, who's a software engineer at Ocado and also a developer on Foodpot. He's gonna speak a little bit about Next.js. I know Next.js is up and coming within the tech community. So yeah, inshallah, Haseem, over to you.
Okay, inshallah. I think you need to still give me share permissions.
Say that again, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Share permissions, yep, there we go.
Go ahead.
All right. Can you see?
Yep, we can see.
Okay, perfect. All right, my name is Haseem. Like Ibrahim said, I'm currently working in Ocado as a full stack developer. I previously worked in Starling Bank as a full stack developer there as well. Yeah, so today I'm going to be talking about why we chose Next.js as our framework for our front end. And for those that don't know what Next.js is a front end framework for the web. So they have server-side rendering for these frameworks. Okay, the things I'm going to be focusing on today are about user experience, the developer experience, the cost to host, Next.js, and the cost of maintenance. When I mean the cost of maintenance, I also mean the cost of maintaining it for our developer, right? As in the developer's time taken in order to maintain these things. I would also be talking about the ease of development and how long it takes to develop a Next.js app, the performance and how easy is it to deploy, and the testing aspect of it as well, hopefully. All right, so one of the reasons why, some of the reasons why we chose Next.js is because it's well supported by the community. It's used by a lot of big brands such as Apple, TikTok, Twitch, HashiCorp, Washington Post, TripAdvisor, and Airbnb. And we also realized that by using Next.js, the decision was between Next.js or ReactJs, because our group of team, they knew about those two frameworks really well. We had the least, we had to sacrifice the least when moving on to Next.js. In fact, we didn't actually sacrifice anything compared to React, because although we would need an actual proper server to run Next.js compared to React, all the features that you have on React about React hooks and state management and everything, that carries on to Next.js as well. And one of the other things is, we could reuse this code as well. So if we decide to actually make a React native app for mobile and Android and iPhone, we could actually use a lot of this code in order to implement that, at least, you know, in terms of styling and everything else as well. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know about Next.js is that it allows you to do both front-end and back-end within one framework bundle. Although we're not using it for Foodpot right now, if we decide to make it all in one single app, it would actually still work. And one of the other things that Next.js provides that ReactJs doesn't provide is search engine optimization. Because it's server rendered, right? Every page that the Google tries to index, it would actually be, you know, it would actually be properly indexed, because with React, it sees your entire website as one page, right? And so it can't do indexing properly. Whereas with Next.js, you actually have proper search engine optimization. I'll talk more about the search engine optimization, how powerful it is, later down in the slides. One of the other things that it has is that it has image optimization, and I'll talk about that later on as well. And Next.js also has static site generation and server-side rendering. So it has both hybrid. So you could actually do things that you'll not be able to do in React. You could make it as, you know, how you would normally make a static website, or you could even do server-side rendering. So you've got, like, you know, you've got freedom basically. So now let me talk about what Next.js brings to the table then. Like I said, servers, search engine optimization. So, oh boy, okay, yeah. Okay, I realized I made some horrible notes. So search engine optimization. What it allows when it comes to searching, whenever someone searches, okay, for example, Foodpot, right? Imagine someone searches, all right, let's, you know, a place, a Foodpot, you know, a food bank's name, right? Let's just say East London Mosque is giving out food and they want to search East London Mosque food, right? Normally, if you're doing a React tab, that would not even come up. But because of this, because of the way that the links are all, you know, spread out everywhere, it would actually pop up on a Google search engine and it will say, okay, it would actually show up a Foodpot link. One of the other things that it brings to the table is internalization and language detection for localization, right? I butchered that one. So what it, okay, how do I explain this? All right, so imagine you have, you know, different languages, right? So you've got Portugal, you've got other languages that your website runs in. Now, a lot of developers in the UK, what they don't realize is when you try to search in another language, their website doesn't even pop up, because in terms of localization, that hasn't been indexed yet. We keep that localization in your React state or somewhere. And so in terms of actually indexing it, your search engine doesn't index or any of that. And with this, what it would do is when you enter the website, imagine I'm entering foodpot.com, it would actually go to foodpot. You know, another country's link directly by being able to do this. Okay, now the image optimization, that is a big deal. So one of the things that we fail to do in terms of developers is that we fail to think about third world countries, right? So like right now I have a Mac and I have a really good internet at home. So what I would be thinking about when I'm developing is, oh, does it load really well on my laptop? But in reality, some of your users, they might have a really slow Android phone, or they might be in a rural area where they don't get the luxury that you have, and the internet runs really slow for them. And so what happens is, one of the problems that you get is whenever you enter a website, the image that you see is actually, it renders the entire image, although your phone can only see a portion of it, right? Now, what this Next.js image optimization does is it actually just sends you that piece of that image that you only need to see. It does whatever further optimizations that it needs to do, and it sends it in a WP format. So normally what you would have is, when you go to a website, you would have PNG, you would have JPEG, you would have 5 other formats, and it tries to get, and sometimes JPEG is bigger. So to give an example, WebP is often 30% smaller in terms of image size. And yeah, so this actually, one of the benefits that this has is that it saves on bandwidth. So normally AWS or GCP, they'll charge you for the ingress and egress. So amount of data you send back to your client and the amount of data they get back from you, right? And this saves on that. And not only that, it also saves on the client's bandwidth, right? So some people, they might have like 100 MBs per month or something, and their per MB is really, really important for them. Because, you know, when you go to, you know, India somewhere, and they'll be like, oh no, I only have, you know, 50 MB, I can't do this, right? When I enter this website, there's all of these fancy images that pop up when there's a lot of graphics, right? And it's also fairly simple to implement, right? You only have to use the image tag. So you just have to do image and just do your normal, the way that you normally insert your image, and it would work perfectly fine. It also has something called fast refresh. So imagine you're a developer, and with React developers, they might have seen this. You've navigated through 5 pages and you've got it into a very specific state, and there's a bug. And now what you do is you're like, okay, let me edit this bug. You make a quick edit, and then it hot reloads. When it hot reloads, it either takes you back to the previous page, or it takes you back to the same page, but you lose all of your state. With fast refresh, you get to preserve that state. You get to keep that state with you. And it also has support for TypeScript, and it's actually fairly simple. You just have to change your file name to TS, and voila, you just got, you know, TypeScript with you. One of the other benefits is, for those who know about progressive web apps, this Next.js still works with progressive web apps. I know it doesn't make sense really, because server-side rendering, the whole concept of progressive web apps is that you keep the whole app in your thing, but it does have that feature as well. Like I mentioned, it has one place for front-end and back-end, but I put an asterisk there because you have to be very careful. Because when you're dealing with back-end, you often have more sensitive stuff, right? So you often have your, you know, credentials and your API authentication keys and this and that. And what some people tend to do is when front-end and back-end is bundled together, they tend to make that mistake of exposing some aspect of the back-end into the front-end, and it creeps inwards, right? And so you have to have a clear, you know, sense of separation, and make sure you have to be a bit careful about that. But this is a big deal, because in terms of, for us, right, for Deen developers, our time is very important in terms of, because we don't have that much time. Most of the developers that work with Deen developers, they already have a full-time job, and they are using as much of their spare time as possible. And if we can shorten it by having one space where they can do both front end and back end, and hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Haseem. We can hear you.
All right.
I'm not
Sorry.
sure what happened there. Maybe you can reshare your screen.
Okay, give me 1 second. All right. Okay. All right, perfect. All right, let me just try to quickly finish this, because I know I realize I've been taking quite a bit of time. So it has automatic file system routing, which basically means the file path that you put is actually the route that it takes when you navigate through the website. So you don't have to actually deal with the routing that you normally deal with in React. And some of the things that we've done with Foodpot is that we've created a boilerplate. So we've done all of the setup stuff that you normally do to set up React or Next.js. That's part of the setup. We've already done it for you. And so any future projects that would come up and we need to actually use Next.js, or there's a hackathon that we plan to do that would require people to use Next.js, there's already a boilerplate. They just have to start coding whatever actual content they need to actually code. One of the other things that we have done is that we use something called Cloud Run, and Cloud Run is actually a serverless service basically, which would allow which is a bit different from other serverless things, right? Now, normally with serverless, you would have the advantages that you would have is that you'd only be charged for per million calls, and that's it, right? That's one of the biggest advantages of it. But one of the flaws of serverless is that you have to abide by the serverless framework that they have, and you don't really want to change the way that you code and everything. With Cloud Run, to put it simple, you just have a Docker image, and it fires up that Docker image, it turns it on, it runs whatever is inside, and then shuts it down. It doesn't care about what languages you use in it. And so this is quite useful. At some point, I would like to talk about Cloud Run and the benefits of it. But yeah, we don't really have time for that. Yeah, we have designed more standard components that we can use in the future projects as well. What we have achieved by using Next.js is that we have quick and fast development. So as soon as someone pushes to master, it goes, it basically, Google Cloud Run build picks it up. And then after that, it, what does it do? Yeah, it picks it up, it does the build, it makes a Docker image, and then deploys it to our demo environment straight away. So within the 5 minutes of someone pushing it to master or merging it to master, immediately we have a version that we can compare and actually work on, right? And then if we're satisfied with that, we merge that into a production branch, and immediately our users have it. So within the next 10 to 20 minutes, we could have what we've coded in a production environment, right? With all of the tests and everything after it passes all of that, right? We haven't sacrificed any of the React features like I've mentioned before. So we still can use React hooks, preserving states, and doing all of the, you know, more active stuff, right? Yeah, now this is where the big, you know, warning comes in, right? It's not all sunshine and rainbows. You have to be careful. Although I have mentioned the performance benefits, you have to still make sure that those performance benefits, you are making use of it, right? You can still, like, you know, developers can still code in a way in which you can lose out on those performance benefits. I would also like to thank everyone else in the team as well, including, you know, Ibrahim, Yasmin, Shabana, Abdullah, Musa Rahman, and Hannah as well. I'm sure that the other front-end developers would, you know, would like to talk about a lot about Next.js as well. Unfortunately, they have me. And there's a whole team of backend developers as well. And Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of time put into this, and make dua that this, you know, becomes a very successful project. So in conclusion, some of the things I wanted to say was, you know, we have found cheaper ways of doing front end and back end. It would be really nice if someone comes up with a way, or someone has a way of making databases or storing data cheap. I think that would be a really good discussion to have at some point. One of the other things I wanted to say is, in my personal view, I view donating your skills is much more important than your money, right? One of the projects that I've seen before was in Bangladesh. There's a little hearts operation that you, on little kids, right? And the thing is, you need a specialized doctor to do that. Some of the doctors, those specialized doctors, they actually went to Bangladesh and donated their time and skills, right? Similarly, developers shouldn't underestimate themselves. They have really good skills that they've learned from, you know, workplaces or on their own that they can actually use. And Alhamdulillah, like the previous speakers mentioned, those skills will be really, really useful, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. I don't want to take any more of your time, and I will hand over to Ibrahim.
Jazakallah khair, Haseem. Honestly, I found that really interesting, primarily as a backend developer. And of course, I sat in the discussion with the front-end team was discussing Next.js, and of course, there's all the hype in the tech community. So it was really interesting to hear that from your perspective. And just to highlight again what Haseem said, right? Donating your skills is far more important than money at certain times. Of course, money is needed, but donating your skills and those skills that you've gained at work, they're actually very, very useful to the Muslim community and society at large. And inshallah, within the next year, we've actually got a lot of stuff planned, inshallah, that I'll keep silent for now, but do keep an eye out for the stuff that we do have planned, inshallah. And finally, we have our very own Azizur Bhai, inshallah. So Azizur Bhai, if you could share your screen and tell us a little bit more about maybe the Kahwa and some of the community initiatives that we've run this year.
Could you allow me to share the screen?
Alamin, are you there?
Yeah. For some reason. Oh yeah. Yeah, you should be able to share your screen now.
Can everyone see my screen? And is the audio clear?
Yep, everything's good.
Bismillah. So I would be talking to you about Made with Kahwa, inshallah. And so before I go, just a bit of a reminder, inshallah, to all of us really, is we have had quite a lot of things from Deen Developer community, and this I took this verse from Surah Ar-Rahman, it's something that I find a lot of inspiration from everything that I do. And I also wanted to remind everyone that in this verse, obviously I'm in Arabic, hal jazaa il ihsan illa al ihsan. Now, which is kind of translated into is the reward for good, anything but good. Now, all of us, Alhamdulillah, come together as voluntarily, and this is something that we are doing as good. And Made with Kahwa is something that I see which encourages that, and I will give a bit more detail, but I want to highlight a bit more on this ayah a bit. There's so many take on the word ihsan, and the very first meaning of the word ihsan is that we have to be aware of it is the perfect thing of our faith to believe in Allah and to worship Him alone. And some scholars also give a second meaning, which is to do better or to improve ourselves. And this is something which many people understand is a virtue when it comes to the body to develop and to train the body, and to train and develop the mind by learning new things. But also Islam sees the essential nature of developing and training the soul and spirit and cleaning our heart. And when we go on about our day-to-day, we spend quite a lot of our time at work. And I always ask myself, is the next task I'm doing or the next meeting I'm entering, is that something I can convert into a form of ibadah? And this is where Made with Kahwa stems out, the desire to kind of understanding and excelling what we do, but connecting it back to our deens and while we go on about improving ourselves. So in ihsan, I mean, people loosely translate the pursuit of excellence. And pursuit of excellence, the thing that we have to remember is that we are all change agents. And we are all trying to improve things. But how do we pursue excellence? To do that, we need to be intentional about being that change agent. We need to understand the time horizon may be a bit longer, and we may be stuck with little resources at time. If we think about what we had so far from everyone who presented today, all the great achievement wouldn't have happened if someone else hadn't reached out to another person in the first place. And that only happened because, Alhamdulillah, Deen Dilwoar created a social network. And through this, we are changing the perception of not only Muslim, but we're also changing ourselves. And we are also in turn changing the culture and future that yet to come. Now, what is pursuit of excellence? There, you might hear, in your engineering role, engineering excellence, or guilds, or many other terminology that people do. And all of this is in pursuit of excellence. And if we look into the Islamic legacy, it is rich with ihsan. All the achievements in arts, science, architecture, literature, geography, politics, economic, social movement, philosophy, medicine, and more come from the Muslims' desire to attain ihsan. Ihsan is our lost treasure, and that we must unearth and revive. Now, while we're trying to do this, what we do in our day-to-day, we have experience, and our experience is the best teacher to improve ourselves. And some of us may be very lucky to have a coach who is going to train you, give you timely feedback and mentor you. And Deen Developer has been working on connecting people to do that. But if I think Sister Arfa is on this call, she's running the other program on coaching and mentoring. And all of this is actually in pursuit of excellence. And if you are in a company and you're blessed with a kind of setup, you might have training, you might have access to tools. But the key thing sometimes we miss is the peer-to-peer collaboration and with the community of practitioners or a support group. Sometimes many of us are very blessed to be in an organization, working in an organization or in a team where we have that. But yet, in my almost 20 years of experience working in very high profile projects and things, there was an element missing, which is connecting our Deen to what we do. And this is when I searched, and I've ended up finding Made with Deen developers and Muslimic maker in the 2020 January hackathon. And that just like completely changed where I could be and kind of filling in a gap in my search. Now, I want to talk about Made with Kahwa, the model itself. It is intentionally designed to harness the power of conversation, both for the places of work that we work, for our businesses that we may have, but also create a social value with it. And it should provide useful guidance for anyone seeking creative ways to foster authentic dialogue, in which the goal is thinking together, creating actionable knowledge. The metaphor of Kahwa helps to highlight the strength and highlight and strengthens invisible waves of dialogue, personal relationship that enables us to learn and find shared purpose. Kahwa is based on a set of principles and process that evokes collective intelligence. It links it to effective action in pursuit of common aims, which is ihsan, and the pursuit of excellence. So how does it happen? So we actually do once a month session, and very much peer-to-peer learning, non-hierarchical. Nobody in the session knows, has the higher authority on this. Everyone is on an equal pair. We also do this because we want to bring in diversity in this. We want to increase the visibility so that everyone draw from the energy of the Muslims in the tech. And we have seen this today. All the people that have worked on various projects, they come from various backgrounds. Not a single person could say, I know it all, or I don't need to know anything else. All of us are trying to improve and learn. And it's a session, it's somewhere between a meeting and an open space, right? And the thing that happens in there is the entire session is self-organized. There is no assessment, assigned task, and topics that we discuss are pretty much chosen by the attendees and the thing that they're interested in. We've obviously suggested a theme for the session, but the rest of the conversation is based on the attendees' contribution. Ideally, we would love to do this face-to-face, but it is something with the lockdown and everything, 2020 being 2020. And Alhamdulillah, we have good internet connectivity. We have a Zoom call like this, and we could do virtually, and we do talk face-to-face on a video call. And follow-up discussion after the thing takes place in the Deen Developer Slack channel. And Alhamdulillah, we have seen so many interesting conversations take place. And like with everyone else, I would also like to present some numbers just to highlight what we achieved in last 6 months since we started. So we held 6 different sessions, and we kind of covered or kind of thought about discussing almost 170 different topics across various broad categories in engineering, software engineering. And almost half of the attendees are actively engaged in this. And this brings joy to me, because it is that engagement, that conversation, which actually helps each one of us learn and then to follow on and practice afterward, because not everything we do work is going to kind of teach you everything, but sometimes you need someone else to give you a different perspective. And this conversation is the point where it actually helps you get that different perspective. Sometimes you'll agree with people, other times you disagree with people, doesn't matter. It's the fact that we are getting exposure to it. And the number of times I have been on the interview panel and actually looking at a candidate and actually seeing the very thing that you're looking at to hire someone, they don't have it simply because they didn't have exposure to it. They didn't have that visibility of things. And these Made with Kahwa session is essentially to show or visualize the other things that are not usually visible to you if you are still focused on within your own sector, field of work. So Alhamdulillah, this is so far our progress. And inshallah, I'm looking forward to next year with even more more engagement with everyone. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Azizur, for that. Alhamdulillah. It's also important to note that how Made with Kahwa actually started. Myself, Azizur, and another brother, we actually jumped on a call during lunchtime, and we just had a general conversation around tech, and we realized that as a community, there's actually a lot of knowledge to share. Then Alhamdulillah, Azizur stepped forward to actually turn this into into a proper event and a monthly knowledge sharing session that's for the community, led by the community. So if inshallah in 2021, if you guys do have any ideas of how we can improve the community and get people learning from one another and stuff like that, then please do let us know, inshallah. Ping us on Slack, social medias, wherever it may be, inshallah. And then yeah, alhamdulillah, this draws a close to our night, but we wanted to maybe save a few minutes, inshallah. I know we're slightly over time. Yeah, we're actually about half an hour over time. But nonetheless, inshallah, wanted to see if there's any questions from the community regarding any of the projects, whether that be Iftar, Foodpot, Salah Space, their community, or Made with Kahwa. So if there's any questions, do either speak out or do ping it on the Zoom chat, inshallah. So MC, who's this question for? Is it a general Deen developers question, or is it for a specific project? Okay, inshallah. So the question is, have you thought about internationalizing these projects for either of the people who are leading the products? So maybe I can answer this, inshallah, because I'll be working on the projects as well. And unless anyone else wants to step forward and answer the question. All right, cool. I'll answer, inshallah. So with regards to the projects, we've actually had a lot of conversation around taking these projects internationally. So for example, for Iftar, there's also food poverty all the way around all around the world. Likewise with Salah Space as well, we actually had Mufti Menk on board to kind of help corroborate the pushing of it on an international scale. But unfortunately, due to data stuff that we were kind of dealing with and so forth, we thought it'd probably be best to keep it in the UK. Likewise with Foodpot, one of the backend developers is actually from Bangladesh, and he was speaking about how something like Foodpot would actually be very, very useful in the Muslim world, in the sense that in Bangladesh and in Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, and so forth, there's a lot of people who are middle class and had access to internet and so forth, but because of COVID and so forth, and people falling below the poverty line, they simply didn't know where to get food from. So something like Foodpot would actually be very beneficial abroad. So this is, inshallah, hopefully once we launch, we'll see about taking stuff abroad, inshallah. But for now, it's mainly just for UK projects to answer the question in a short way, inshallah. Okay, so there's a question from Mudassir. He says no questions, but he says but a message of congratulation, appreciation, and utmost admiration to each person involved in any project in whatever capacity. Such phenomenal work being carried out despite testing circumstances is a testament to the prophetic footsteps embedded onto us through our parents, communities, mosques. As a Muslim, it is our duty to excel in our aspects of life, and seeing DD lead the charge in the tech space makes me a proud Muslim. May Allah continue to place barakah in your endeavors. That's actually a really nice message, Hamna. So Jazakallah khair for that, Mudassir. And then there's another question from MC, and I guess this is a question to everyone, right? How do you decide which ideas to adopt? What is the filtering process, criteria, other projects you have in the pipeline? Or is this a specific project to a particular, is this question specifically to Deen developers or to any of the project leaders? That's to MC. Could respond.
I think that's a general question, right? I think just in terms of what's our framework for deciding which projects to adopt and to take forward.
Yeah.
What do you think, Gibbs? From what we've done this past year, how did, for example, Foodpot or Salah Space or Sheriff Dar, how did we decide on focusing on those projects instead of others?
Yeah, for us, I guess for each of the projects that you guys kind of heard from now, it was from a very reactionary perspective. The community needed something instant and we responded. And for us, this is what we want to do. We want to rely on the Deen developers community to come forward and actually work on these ideas. There's obviously there's society at large is in general rife with problems, right? But we as a small organization, as a small community, we obviously have to pick what projects we work on and so forth. So it kind of comes down to a few different things. It comes down to time. How much time are people able to kind of commit to a project? Comes down to skill set also. Of course, each of the teams are multidisciplinary, and from an experience perspective as well, kind of partnering up junior developers with senior developers. In terms of from an ideas perspective, of course, we don't really have we don't really filter ideas, right? In the sense that if the problem is apparent enough, i.e., for example, with Chef Dar, it was a problem regarding food. How do people get food during Ramadan? Then this is something that we felt as though we had to kind of react to. And I guess the more people that kind of come forward, inshallah, and wanting to get involved in these projects going forward, then the more problems we can kind of work on, essentially, inshallah. So I guess in terms of filtering, whatever problems come to us and we feel as though we're adequately have the resources in order to deal with it, then we deal with it, inshallah. But if you guys do have any problems that you feel as though the local community or Muslim community is facing, or society in general, then do get in touch with us, inshallah, and we can put together a team to kind of solve that problem, inshallah. There's another question that says, I wish to get involved, but I don't feel qualified to do so. Any thoughts? Alamin, do you want to answer? Because I've been answering a lot of questions. If not,
yeah, of course. So I'll just speak from my experience. I mean, I graduated with a maths degree, so I'm not even a technical person to begin with. And the past year, I've kind of really focused myself on learning the basics. So I picked, I started my journey at the beginning of the year, just before Muqtakim said maths isn't technical. But you know what I mean, right? It's not, we don't code or anything like that. Yes, it's technical to some extent. But what I was trying to say is, so I had this goal in mind that I want to pick up some technical skills. I want to learn Python, and that's kind of what I started with at the beginning of the year, just before the quarantine. Alhamdulillah, I think I'm doing okay. Obviously, still learning. I'm also documenting my journey. If you guys want to check it out on Twitter, inshallah. Selfless plug. But yeah, I mean, you don't really have to be someone who has experience in the field to get involved. All you need is the drive, and we offer you the community. We offer you access to people who are experienced, who have gone through this journey, who are now working on real life projects and and such. So there's nothing really that can stop you. So you just have to have that motivation and take the first step. And alhamdulillah, our community is really supporting. People come from all types of background. You know, we have people who are technical, who are non-technical. So 100%, you're more than welcome to reach us, and inshallah we try our best to help you get started, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. And I think it comes down to the main point that everyone has something to give, right? It might not be technical skills, it might not even be non-technical skills like UX design and stuff like this, but everyone has a skill set to give, whether that's writing, whether that's copywriting, whether that's designing or anything like this, right? So inshallah, and Dilwoar actually made a very good point because he said that there's a lot of non-technical roles that are needed for these projects, right? For example, for Chef Thad, we actually had people working on marketing, we had people working on logistics, we had people working on a lot of different things. For Salah Space, actually, my sister's actually an accountant, but she actually got involved with simply just calling up different mosques and stuff like this, because the thing is, we don't know what good deed of ours is going to be accepted, right? So when projects like this come forward, it's important to kind of like be involved in whatever capacity we can. And if you're speaking from a dev perspective, then every kind of every project that we kind of work on, we kind of, as well as the hackathons that we run, is kind of a mix between experience. So we have junior developers with senior developers, and you really get to learn from one another in these things, inshallah. So yeah, don't worry too much about not feeling as though you're not qualified enough, inshallah. That's what we're here to do. You're here to learn on the project, as well as kind of do some good for the community, inshallah, where in whatever capacity that may be, inshallah. And yeah.
Brother Ibrahim, we've got one more question. How do young people get involved who needs mentoring from some of the excellent and really experienced people on this call, or within the developer network?
Yeah, inshallah. So there's actually it's actually one thing that we're actually trialing, inshallah. We're trialing kind of connecting junior developers to senior developers to actually work on community projects that the community needs for like charities and institutes and stuff like this, inshallah. So this is something that we're kind of just trialing. There's obviously we've got a few teething issues in that sense, and then hopefully, inshallah, once that's ready, we can kind of launch that program. But for now, inshallah, the Deen developers community in general is very nice. I want to say, again, from a biased perspective, but whenever I've had a question regarding anything tech related, or whenever anyone's kind of had any questions regarding tech or design or anything like this, they simply pop it over onto Slack, and then alhamdulillah, there's always someone there to kind of reach out and not only just message you, but kind of go the extra distance and set up a call. I know Azizur has done that a couple of times. I know a lot of people within the community have done this as well. So don't worry too much about not asking. Sorry, what's the word? Don't worry too much about asking questions. Please do ask questions. Please do learn from one another within the Slack community. And the community, that's what we're here to do, right? As well as building projects and having an impact on the world, we're also here to learn from one another.
I think the question was more focused on more younger group than people who are already employed. So I mean, I personally would highly recommend people on this call, especially who are working, take time out to become a STEM ambassador. So that's your way of kind of having an even bigger impact. And being a STEM ambassador, I mean, I have been one of them for a while now. And where you do go to school, you do talk to young, kind of people in their GCSEs or late GCSE, and you really get to see and give them a glimpse of the view, the workplace that you are in, or how you achieve where you are. And that really is an inspiring role. So I really highly recommend that, the person who asked Masoom, if you have children in school or a niece and nephew, ask the school if they have a STEM club and make sure they are involved in those STEM activities. I think that's the better ways of getting the younger children to get their kind of time occupied in a productive way, because through those things they will see and they will see the thing that we are not seeing, plus they will be prepared for future which we don't even know. And you know, some of the things that I tell when I'm presenting in front of the children at schools and colleges is that the job that they will be getting doesn't exist yet. Now, a lot of people actually look at, okay, I want to be a lead developer or senior developer or a developer for some, but the kids who are growing up in school now, the job that they will get to is not even there yet, you know, and it is for us to actually go and actually advise them how to be prepared for that world when we don't even know what the future might be. With all these autonomous car and everything that are, you know, driverless cars and autonomous systems going on, we are kind of placed at a point where we have to make sure our next generation are equipped, or at least given the view from our experience that they could achieve far greater things. And it is us who are responsible for actually doing this. We can't not leave that to someone else to encourage especially the ethnic minorities children, you know, in schools. They don't see a role model, you know, in tech industry or others, and it's really hard even for sisters. You know, I have been to so many conferences and I look around, hardly anyone there, especially from Muslim background. And it is our job to make sure we inspire the next generation to, you know, pursue a career in technology. And Sister Arfa being prime role model in that scenario, where she is doing a lot, alhamdulillah, and Brother Ibrahim, you know, doing a lot with the university. So, but I think we still have more effort individually to do with STEM network.
Jazakallah khair, Azizur. Very, very, very good advice there, inshallah. There's a question from Brother Muhammad who says his interest is more in the community service side of things. How do you get over the hurdles and anxieties of dealing with the public and getting involved in community projects? This is a question to everyone who's involved in projects, like products. Dilwoar, Russell, Yasmin, Haseem.
Sorry? Do you know what? I would say, like, you've just got to throw yourself in it. Like, I know that's a rubbish answer, but I think everyone feels some level of anxiety when you get involved in a project or presentation or something or another, and you only really develop by doing. And that's pretty much across the board, whether it's technical, non-technical, just cold calling somebody. So I would say, like, just get involved, and that there is a place for you, like, even if it is something non-technical. There's so many different things that you can do on a particular project. So yeah, speak up and just get involved.
Yeah, as in you have to start somewhere, right?
Yep, exactly. And everyone's quite open in the community. So, like, I think if you've reached out to anybody, I'm pretty certain that, like, grab the opportunity when you can in terms of mentoring and finding a specialist in the area and that kind of stuff. So it's a great network. So yeah, get involved.
Yeah, depending on the type of person you are, our Discord channel really helps as well. So I sometimes just drop into the Discord channel, join a voice channel, and then you can just talk. Like, people are just there chilling, talking. There's no formality. There's no sense of pressure. It's quite nice.
And also, if you're looking for a job, you can meet someone in one of these big companies, and they might be able to tell you what to do for the interviews.
Mm-hmm. Ibrahim?
Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I had a question. So in terms of internationalization, someone mentioned about going international at some point, right?
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking more along the lines of making use of international resources. So yeah. I'm pretty sure some of us are aware of other people that are not in UK, that are developers, that are product people. Is Deen developers, are we planning on bringing those people in as well? As in, is Deen developers open to them right now?
Yeah. So we're, alhamdulillah, like I mentioned, right, even on Foodpot, we have brother Abir, who's based in Bangladesh, helping out, because the thing is, talent is everywhere around the world, right? It's not necessarily just to do with people in the UK, and that's from a dev perspective and from a non-technical perspective as well. We actually have a year in review video that we'll put out tomorrow, inshallah, and it's actually a brother from Afghanistan actually made it for us, and it's of really, really good quality in that sense. So alhamdulillah, within the Deen developers community, we have people from all around the world. Although we're primarily based in the UK and most people in the UK, we've got people from like Indonesia, Turkey, Germany, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and so forth. So Deen developers isn't just limited to the London community. And I guess the one benefit of the of lockdown and COVID and so forth is that we stopped doing events in person, which meant that people can attend from anywhere around the world. Like for example, I think in a few of the Made with Kahwa sessions, one sister from Egypt actually joined. Likewise with a brother from Turkey and so forth. So we're not just limiting ourselves to people in the UK. If anyone is not from the UK or has people who want to get involved with Deen developers and aren't from the UK, then please do ping it across to them, inshallah, and get them to join. Does that answer your question, Haseem?
Yeah, it does. Jazakallah khair.
Okay, barakallah fi, inshallah. Okay, unless there's any other questions, inshallah, we're just gonna wrap up, inshallah, and kind of do a small what's coming, I guess, in the future, inshallah. So we actually one of the things that we didn't actually mention or very briefly mention was our code jam session, which is an open weekly relaxed environment where people can kind of just drop in, drop out, inshallah. So brother Muazzam and Wasu will actually run that for Deen developers, and it's every Thursday at 6 p.m. inshallah. So do join the Discord channel that Muazzam has put on the group, inshallah. And likewise, I just really want to thank you all for kind of being a part of Deen developers, right? In whatever capacity that may be, whether that's getting involved with the projects or whether that's sharing stuff on social media, whether that's even just making dua for us in that sense, right? Alhamdulillah, for us at Deen developers, we have very lofty visions and a lofty goal in terms of actively solving community problems, as well as preserving and increasing the community that we currently have, but also solving problems that the world is facing, right? Not just people in the UK, but around the world, inshallah. In January, or actually, let me not say January, just in case it doesn't happen, but sometime in Q1, inshallah, we're going to be running a hackathon around a particular topic, inshallah, that would be really good for people to get involved in inshallah. Likewise, in 2021, we've got a lot of things coming forward and a lot of projects that we kind of want to work on, inshallah. And I guess the kind of ulterior motive behind this event, as well as highlighting the impact that we had, such as 1,390 meals from Chef Iftar, 65,000 bookings from Salah Space, and so forth, is simply to show you guys that, you know what, it doesn't take much money and it doesn't take much effort to have a difference and make an impact on the world. It's not about, oftentimes when we think about community projects and when we think about what can I do for my community, what can I do for the ummah, it's simply, you know what, I don't have the time in terms of I'm busy with work, I'm busy with family and so forth. But the people who were involved with the projects this year, they've shown that, you know what, it doesn't take that much time to build something that's useful and that can have an impact. And for us as individuals and as Muslims, our goals should be much higher than just aspiring towards like career goals and family goals and stuff like this, as well as this stuff is very important, inshallah, but we should be working towards building our legacy on this earth and kind of thinking about, okay, what projects am I building for myself that will be a means of sadaqah jariyah for when I pass away, inshallah. And the brothers and sisters who have been involved in the projects, alhamdulillah, they've kind of tick that checkbox, inshallah, hopefully. And I look forward to all of you guys, inshallah, getting involved with us and getting involved with us, Deen developers, next year, inshallah, and keeping up to date. Obviously, we signposted quite a few things, inshallah, like for example the Discord, which Muazzam has put on the chat. Likewise, the Slack, inshallah. If you go to deendevelopers.com, you can find the Slack link as well as our newsletter link, inshallah, to keep up to date with everything that we're doing. And yeah, inshallah, I will leave it at this, inshallah, because of course we've gone slightly over, well, pretty much over time, inshallah, as it usually goes, inshallah. But if you guys do need anything, inshallah, please do reach out on Slack to either of the the people we spoke today, or myself, or Alamin, or anyone else from the core Deen developers team. And yeah, thank you to our speakers, inshallah, and for getting involved and giving us some content to speak about in our year in review event, inshallah. Tomorrow we're actually releasing our year in review video, slightly small trailer, inshallah. So please do keep an eye out for that. And once again, do keep us in your du'as, inshallah. Make du'a that Deen developers is a place that can be at the forefront of solving community problems using tech. And yeah, I'll leave it at this, inshallah. Jazakallah khair to everyone for attending. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.